Hey guys, I am John Carrick, author of Legacy of a Mad Scientist and The Legend of Ashley Fox. Available right now on Amazon Smashwords or right here on YouTube for a limited time. It's not going to be forever. They're just out here until I get a better recording of them, which is going to be soon. I finished another chapter last night, so 2,000 words, 2 chapters, like 1,800 words. I've been doing 2 chapters a night for the last few nights, which is really good. I'm at a really exciting part. It's a zombie takeover of Barstow Community Hospital. So it's fucking awesome. And today we are going to finish Dogs of London. I decided since I bought these, I was going to give it a full review. We're not going to go through the first one again, just 2 through 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to really quickly explain how this is different from Gangs of London and that movie where Tom Hardy played 2 gangster brothers in the 60s, and one of them was like a psychopathic gay dude. So what's happening is this is where it really takes a turn. These kids get sent to a juvenile detention facility and they get experimented on by the people running it. They get given these shots. And that's why when this guy kills his friends later, they survive. 50 years underground. 30 years underground? 30 years underground. And yeah, so this is just about them being English gangsters. Everything is the same as the Charlie Leach story from Rise of the Foot Soldier, except that they get given these special shots which make them immortal. And here's a messed up part, right? So there's 6 or 7 of these kids that they give the shots to. 2 of them die, and they get buried in the hospital garden. And then the 5 of them that survive, a few of them become like super psychopathic. In here, this is the 2 main guys, Terry and Frank, figuring out what's going on. They're torturing people, right? This is one of the guys who... So a few things happen. In this scene, the government takes over. These are the 3 that were supposed to be corpses, and they're alive. These are the friends that were killed 30 years ago who were supposed to be corpses, but they're alive, and government comes in and takes over. And then Frank and Terry, who are the 2 remaining guys of the Dogs of London crew, they kidnap one of these secret agents. And, well, first we get this backstory about their childhood. But then they kidnap one of these secret agents and torture him. This is the guy who has taken over the hospital. Torture him for information about where the bodies are being kept. And they fuck him up pretty good. And this is mixed in with flashbacks of what they did when they were kids. It's all sort of, this is one of those Matryoshka, I think that's the name of them, Matryoshka stories, where it's like a doll within a doll within a doll within a doll. Anna was supposed to be that with Sasha Luss. It didn't really work with that movie. It was sort of edited to be that way. I would say the best interpretation of this, they tried it with Longlegs. They're trying it with everything where the bad guy... They did it with Joker 2, where Arthur Fleck was Batman's older half-brother. They're doing it with everything. They're doing it with everything. You're seeing it in all kinds of stuff that it doesn't need to be there. It would be like making Clarice Starling Hannibal Lecter's great-granddaughter or something like that. And it's unnecessary. You don't need to do that. You don't need to tie it into such a tight bow to tell a good story. A bit of randomness works. You don't want the characters should not be related to their arch enemies. It becomes incestuous. You end up with an incestuous story, and it's just not that interesting. The audience loses. Really, what you're doing, what I think you're doing, in a lot of ways, is you're saving costs on actors. You know, if you have an ensemble cast and there's a mystery bad guy and you make it one of the 5 members, you don't have to introduce an actor in the 3rd act who doesn't get anything in the 1st or 2nd acts. And that's a lot of what we're dealing with, is trying to give all your famous people enough screen time. That's a stupid way to write a story. It's a low budget way to write a story. It works for movies like Memento, but Memento has a really cool hook with the tattoos and the sort of the weird amnesia. This doesn't have that hook. Having these kids be tortured and made immortal isn't enough of a hook. And here's where it gets really dumb, right? This is a good concept, but here's where it gets really dumb. So Audrey gets murdered by his best friend, and when he's older, he knows that it was him, and we know this is why he kills him. Audrey was why he murdered his best friend. And now we get to how he murdered his best friend. Here, first we get to Terry blowing up the hospital where their bodies are. And then we get the last page, which is the cover of the next issue, because even the fire and the explosion didn't kill them. Here I have another problem, right? The concussion should have done it. The concussion should kill them. The fire should kill them. Why doesn't it? The rot in the ground should kill them. It should have infected their bodies. They should have starved. There's a lot of ways they should have died. Oh my fucking God, look at this. Right here, I have to show this to Jay because this is exactly, I gotta buy this book. Again, here's the only thing, this is Aftershock Comics. I don't know them as a studio, but the only thing the independent studios get right are the ads. And I gotta check this out because this is exactly our device for my new story. Our bad guys, the Jinn, are using porcelain masks as possession devices, and that when ladies put them on, they get possessed by the Jinn. It's sort of like a radio receiver, and we're drawing them pretty much just like this. Jay has been drawing them just like this, so he's gonna flip out when I send this to him. But this is also the old Fear, I don't remember what the name of the comic book was, but this is a famous old 50s comic book. So there's nothing new under the sun. But this is still cool. I can't wait to check this out. And let me continue on with Dogs of London as we go. So here we get book 3. This is them. So the fire didn't kill them. Being underground for 30 years didn't kill them. That's a special kind of immortality. It's not just that they didn't age, but they're also invulnerable. You know, you can't hurt them. So they're immortal on a couple levels. Will a gunshot to the head work? Why wouldn't it? I mean, unless their heads are bulletproof, and I don't know why that would be. Here we get more of the same. This is just running around England. This is back in the past, and Frank has had it with this kid Danny, and he poisons him with strychnine. Him and the other two guys, because he knew that Albert and Kosher, so one of them is Jewish. He knew that if he just killed Danny, that the other two would have killed him. So he had to kill all 3 of them. And he poisoned them. It would have been better if he just shot them in the face. But then we wouldn't have had a comic book. And when we get to the end of this, I'm going to explain how I would have done it differently. So here we cut back to the funeral for Audrey that Frank couldn't go to because they were the enemy gang, and he's really upset about that. And then Flora finds out that he's murdered his friends, and that's how they end up staying together, because his other friend Terry is going to kill Flora, but Frank vouches for her and marries her, and she stays with him. And this is them together, and they have a kid now. And so after he buries his friends, he got drunk for a while. He got so drunk he had to get his stomach pumped. Blardy-blar. And now this is like the old place that they used to have, I guess, and I don't know, whatever. Doesn't matter. This has a lot to do with that Gangs of New York TV show with Joe Cole, which is actually really good. You guys should check it out. It's worth watching for the accents alone, and just because they drive around London. It's nice to see London. That was why I think Doctor Who worked so well for American audiences. It's because he was stuck in London. So here are the dead guys walking out of the fire, or being dead guys, and they steal these kids' clothes. This is where I would have started it. This is where I would have started the book. It was the day that they got dug up. And I would have made it all about them. And I would have made it this is essentially The Crow. This is The Crow with medicine and a 30-year gap. And it's traitors instead of the enemy gang. But so here they take clothes from these kids. I think they even steal their car. Doesn't really matter. And then they have to go do research. So they go and smash up a bar and they start asking about Patrick Quinlan. They don't know that they've been dead for 30 years. That has to be explained to them. And then we get some flashbacks. The flashbacks are really dumb. But they're not, no flashbacks yet. This is still them investigating. This is Frank out doing whatever. I think he discovers that they catch up with Terry. They catch up with Terry first. And Frank recognizes the tortures that they did to Terry as Danny's favorite sort of tortures. He likes to break fingers with a pair of pliers. And yeah, so Frank immediately knows what's up. And he tells his wife to get out of town, that he doesn't know how, but they're not dead. And she's like, well, I'll bring a gun. Oh my, aren't you tough? Aren't you standing up for yourself? You're going to carry a gun in England? Fucking dumb. Get the fuck out of here. This could have been so much better. This could have been so much better. If they wanted to do a book about people doing experiments on kids in England in the 60s and 70s, that could have been genius. This is not it. This is just a weird revenge movie. No good guys. Everyone's a villain. Everyone's an asshole. No one is worth looking up to. This is anti-white propaganda. This is a story where all the white people are evil. And gay. This one Danny kid is gay too. So I don't know why. Who asked for this book? You murdered trees for this book? That's going to be my new thing. If your books suck and you murdered trees for them, that's what I'm going to say to make fun of you. So here's the bad guys being bad guys. They're going around torturing people. They get a hold of Frank's son and torture him, which is coming up if it's not right here. First, they mess up a bunch of other people. I think this is where they kidnap Frank's son and mess up his friend. No, here's another thing. They have this special power where they can like make people do things, and they make this guy smash his face into the wall, into the mirror, and then that's like Frank's son's friend. And here they go into that old building, and they're digging up something that's been left buried there. I don't remember. Oh, the bones. Oh no, so he bought, okay, here's what's happening. He bought the juvenile delinquent home that they kept him in, and they were going to redevelop it. He was going to tear it down and rebuild on the grounds, and then he went and dug up his friends who died, and then he goes and tortures the guy who did this to him, the guy who ran the experiments in the 60s and 70s. This is the kind of experiment they would have been doing in Germany, not really in England, although England didn't get any of the German scientists. America and Russia did. England never had this level of expertise. This came out of Germany. This kind of science came out of Germany. Being Irish German, I can lay claim to that heritage. Anyhow, he goes and threatens to torture this guy. This guy explains that the reason that he grew old and that Terry grew old was that some of the people got placebos, and that he was on the placebo/psychedelic regimen, and his friends were the ones who were made immortal. So he's going to shoot him, and he doesn't, and then Flora does, and you think for a second that he has the power to explode someone's head without firing his gun, but he doesn't. It's the other girl. She did it. And I still don't care. They're all villains. They're all villains. Again, the best thing about this is the ads. Fucking right it is. I like this publication company, Aftershock. I will look into some of their other series. I hope they're better than this. Where's number 5? Fuck. All right, here's number 5. This is the last one. And essentially, everyone gets their revenge. Nice splash page. Could have done with some more highlights. I am just sort of spoiling the entire series for you. Okay, so here's what's happening here. Frank calls all his old Bruiser friends together. This would be like in the Charlie Each thing where they get Craig Fairbass and, I don't know, Scott Adkins, all the other tough English actors, Vinnie Jones, whoever else they can get, you know. They would be cast in this scene. Craig Fairbass, Vinnie Jones, any other big, famous English old actors. Maybe Nick Moran. I'm sure you could get him in there for this. Anyhow, one of the young guys talks smack to Frank and he elbows him and headbutts him just to show that he's still got it. And then he drives around through town. This is kind of interesting. The next few pages, he drives through town looking incredibly smug. And I thought that was really good, subtle artwork. This artist has gotten better as the issues have gone on along. I've heard that before, listening to a lot of the CG stuff. They say the first issue takes 6 weeks, the second one takes 4, the third one takes 3. I think that was Bart Sears talking with Dave Finch. And that it takes a while to get the characters. It takes a while to develop and to invent the characters as an artist. You can't just, it's not like shooting a movie think about all the pre-production work that goes into shooting a movie. You guys think you hire an artist and on day 1 he draws panel 1 and everyone looks exactly like how they're going to look. He has to find a way to differentiate all their faces, all their characters, all their personality quirks. And if he doesn't have the whole script, if an artist can't sit down and read the entire script from front to back, he doesn't know the characters yet. And chances are, the writer doesn't fucking know the characters yet. And the writer is bouncing his writing off the artist's the way the artist envisions the characters. It's a huge, think about how much teamwork there is and how much pressure is put on the artist, unspoken responsibility put on the artist that almost never gets acknowledged. So when I saw Frank driving around with this smug look on his face after elbowing a teenager in the face, this is a great fucking artist who is probably put under the gun. Also, the characters are looking a little more English now than Italian, like they did in the first issue. That may have been something that was addressed. It may have been something he did on his own. It may be bullshit in my head. Anyhow, I would say the dumbest part about this is the psycho power that these dead kids have. They're going to have psycho power anyhow because they're dead. I mean, you have an opportunity to do like some sort of crazy goth story here. You could have made these 3 kids, if they were innocent, you could have made them the new leaders of the underworld and it would literally be like the underworld. Instead, we get a bunch of old guys fighting dead guys. Okay. And so they can survive an explosion but not gunfire. And they also have this ability to force people to commit suicide. So they don't have to engage in physical violence. They engage in torture for fun. And when it comes to actually fighting, they're just going to think you to, stop hitting yourself. Why are you punching yourself? That's the storyline here. And this isn't even interesting either. Flora shows up with his son and helps him escape. And they drive out of the immediate area. And he tells her to stop the car, that he has to go back, his son says, let the cops deal with it. And this is where he finally grows a pair. I mean, that's not accurate because he's been dealing with it the entire time. But this is where he finally takes responsibility and says, I have to go back and do this myself. He's been doing it himself all along. There's just been stuff going on here's the other thing is like, he made these decisions without the knowledge of Like, why didn't they know? Why didn't they have some suspicion about what this drug regimen, this experiment was being done to them? I feel like he didn't explore this story idea very far and just sort of jumped at the first concept that came to him. He said, I want to do Gangs of London as a comic book, but what if we make it where he has to kill his friends and they come back from the dead? And that's what we get. This is a half-hearted attempt. This did not get the effort necessary to justify 5 printed comics and however many trees this fucker killed, in my humble opinion. So that's 3 days of bad comics, and I have a bunch of, I know I have some King Conans. We'll do those tomorrow for Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Oh, there's a few things I want to talk about, and we have a conflicted card. This is number 3 of hearts. This is a goofy card. This is a very goofy card. You have a young friend who didn't believe the collapse was coming, and now you're on the edge of the collapse, and he begs you to go with him to the store and buy supplies, and things are already melting down at the store. And while at whatever store, I don't know, Harbor Freight, Barnes & Noble, obviously not, maybe Home Depot, maybe Target, maybe the grocery store. Anyhow, he pulls a gun on a couple guys and shoots them. Doesn't kill them, but like shoots them in the leg, fires to incapacitate. And the police are on their way. What do you do? If you're dumb enough to go to the store with an idiot who didn't get ready and is now panicking, you deserve whatever you get. If you take him and you flee, you deserve whatever you get. If you stay there, you deserve whatever you get. If you abandon him to his own devices, then you're going to have to live with that on your conscience. If there's an emergency, call 911. It's that simple. Handle your shit. Do what you have to do before you do what you want to do. I did my back workout already today. I wrote my 2 chapters last night. I'm recording this now. I'll draw for a while. I've got to get out of here in a bit because I've got people to go see for the holidays. So Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. I hope that you are chasing your dreams, putting your story down on paper, whatever it is, and I hope it's magnificent. I hope it's magnificent. And if you, I'm sorry, this is very egotistical, but I love story. I love evaluating stories. I will not critique your story. I will evaluate it. And there is value in this. There is a different route for this. But I can't, once it's been published, it's a critique. Before it's been published, it's an evaluation. It's still a critique, but you can change it. So if you're working on something, maybe my work is not the kind of advice you want, but look, you certainly don't need my advice. The way things are nowadays, there's so many resources for free. You don't need to ask me for help. There's help everywhere. You can absolutely do anything you set your mind to do. You are capable of way more than you believe. Here's one thing I definitely want to talk about for Christmas. There's been a lot of chatter over the World Economic Forum guy, Klaus Schwab, who's often put up against like Nosferatu and the Rothschilds and evil people like Ming the Merciless. He said, you will own nothing and be happy. And he was talking down to people. And that's always viewed as a very evil sentiment of tyranny. And it is. And it should be viewed that way because that was how he meant it. But there is a side to that that's really important. If he had phrased it another way, if he had been a different person, if he had been the Buddha, if he had been Alan Watts, if he had been Jesus, he might have said, if you can't be happy with nothing, you will find it impossible to be happy with everything. That sentiment I absolutely can support and get behind, and I learned that skating. I was the most egotistical fuck in the world before I was humbled by the simple skateboard. I was humbled by it because I was afraid of it, and I refused to acknowledge my fear. And once I did acknowledge my fear, I realized it was very justified. I have not conquered it yet. I can ollie. I can't ollie up onto a curb, but I can ollie. Eventually I will be able to kickflip. Eventually I will be able to ollie very high. I can still jump. I work out all the time. I'm in good shape. And the humility that this gave me, that learning to ride a skateboard, I'd already done everything else. 10 years of Kung Fu, all the martial arts, wrestling, did the Marine Corps, killed it in the Marine Corps, 300 PFT all the way through boot camp, and I'm in better shape now than I was then. So I am doing everything I have my J.R.R. Tolkien level epic trilogy, which is probably, I could wrap it up in 2 chapters if I wanted to, maybe 4, but it's probably going to be 10 or 12 chapters. So what is that, a couple weeks for me at this point? I am so happy. If you can be happy with nothing, only then are you fit to govern everything. Only when you can be happy with nothing are you in a position where you should be put into a position of, and I don't think this for me, I'm not ready to take a teaching position or a leadership position. This is right here, these public addresses are as close as I'm ever going to get to it. But this is me putting myself out there for you guys. And there is another thing I've got. This is Christmas, so I'm working with these 9 what I call the alpha channel ideals. And these mostly go to writing, but to story, to fiction, for me, to comics, they really apply to comics. The place where story and art intersect, right? That's what the 9th art. So it's great that I have 9 ideals. 1, you got to have a clear conscience when you sit down to write. Because as Hemingway said, start with one true thing. You can't write about truth if you're lying and stealing from people and if you're cheating people. If you're doing anything to win, you should not be a writer. Those are not the lessons anyone wants taught to their society. If that's who you are, you should take a good, close, hard look at how you can do a better job. Is that who you wanted to be as a kid? So that's the first thing. You got to have a clear conscience. The second thing is absolutely love the work. If you're writing about something that's not what you want to be doing, if you don't love the work, if you don't love it, like I love this so much, I'm so proud of this. I put my heart and soul into this. And I don't know that comics for pay writers can say that all the time. Sometimes, sure. All the time, probably not. And that leads me to the third one, which I thought should be further down, but it's really number 3. Don't do it for the money. If you're doing it for the money, you're not doing it for the love. Man cannot serve 2 masters. So that's my own personal opinion. The 4th one is use the virtues as values. In comics, you have values of black and white and then color, right? Hot and cold, saturated and undersaturated. So those values are concrete. You can't communicate a picture if those values are inconsistent. With a writer, when those values are inconsistent, it's a lot less obvious. And we end up with things like nothing but Nightwing. Your values are inconsistent as a company. DC, Detective Comics. You do not, you have, Marvel has always had gray values. Marvel has never had, Marvel has always been the ends justify the means. DC has never been that way. And DC is without an anchor right now. They're lost. They have no moral compass. Marvel is still the ends justify the means, only now they're doing propaganda. They used to do heroism as the ends justified the means. Now they do propaganda. That they have their own image of the world that they want to promote. So don't do that. And that leads me right to the next one, which is don't write with an agenda. If you write an agenda into your work, it will always suffer. It will never be what it should be. It'll never be the spark that you had inside you in the first place. When you were a kid, when you fell in love with fiction, was it for the agenda? Was it for the message? That's why those Bible books always sucked. Because you knew you were being beaten over the head. You knew how it was going to go. There was no nuance. There was no interest. There was nothing interesting ever happened in those. So that's an important element for all this stuff. The next one has to be that your direction equals destiny. You know, where you go becomes who you are. Where you are going becomes who you are. And you get to you're not really traveling So what you're doing is you're refining yourself. You're polishing your stone, as they say in the martial arts. You're becoming more and more of what if you go into doing porn comics, you become a pornographer. It's that simple. You may say, oh, I'm just doing this because it's the only way I can get my art out there. Well, you better work really hard to get into something else then. You know, so master the tools and craft the experience. Those are the last two, 8 and 9. Master the tools, which are story and art. I've focused more on story. Now I'm focusing on art. I'm about to finish my 3rd novel, and then it's going to be all art all the time. And this will be hopefully a little more interesting for you guys. And the last one, craft the experience. You have to think about what experience you want your audience to enjoy. So what parts of the story do you focus on, and which parts get sort of glossed over or don't get as much screen time? In a Kevin Smith movie, it's not about the shootouts and the martial arts. It's about the jokes in the car rides in between. So you got to know what you're doing and who your audience is and what you're working toward. So yeah. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Merry Christmas. Have a good one. Bye.